This happened in Texas in late 2011. Me and my friend Daniel were driving through a small town outside of Amarillo after visiting his cousin. It was freezing that night. Fog everywhere, the kind where your headlights barely work. Daniel was driving while I was half asleep in the passenger seat. At some point, we realized GPS had taken us onto this old back road surrounded by empty fields. No houses, no gas stations, nothing. Then we saw a church, small white building sitting alone near the road, and beside it was an old cemetery. The weird thing was, the church bell started ringing the second we passed it. 3 loud rings. Dong, dong, dong. Daniel looked at me confused, because it was exactly 3:07 a.m. Who rings a church bell at that time? We kept driving another mile before Daniel suddenly slowed down. Standing in the middle of the road ahead of us was a woman. She wore this long white dress that looked dirty at the bottom. Her head was tilted down so we couldn't see her face. At first we thought she needed help. Daniel rolled the window down slightly and asked if she was okay. She didn't answer, didn't move, just stood there. Then slowly, she lifted one arm and pointed behind us, toward the church. I immediately felt sick for some reason. Daniel whispered, "Bro, let's just go." The moment he pressed the gas, the woman suddenly looked up. I only saw her face for maybe 1 second, but I still remember it clearly. Her eyes looked completely black, no white at all, and her mouth was stretched open way too wide. Daniel floored the truck instantly. Neither of us spoke for almost 30 seconds. Then the radio turned on by itself. Static exploded through the speakers. Loud. So loud it made both of us jump. And through the static, we heard something. A voice. Weak at first, then clearer. It sounded like a woman crying. Daniel shut the radio off immediately, but the crying kept going. We realized it wasn't coming from the speakers anymore. It was coming from the back seat. I turned around fast with my flashlight. Nothing there. But the crying stopped the exact second I looked back. At this point, Daniel was panicking. He kept checking the mirrors every few seconds. Then suddenly he said, "She's behind us." I looked into the rear windshield, and my stomach dropped. The woman was standing in the middle of the road far behind the truck. But something was wrong. Even though we were speeding away, she somehow didn't get farther. She stayed the exact same distance behind us, still standing there, still watching. Then the church bell rang again. Dong, dong, dong. Except now, the church was nowhere near us anymore. The sound came from outside the truck, like the bell was following us. Daniel started praying under his breath while driving nearly 90 miles an hour. The crying suddenly returned, this time directly beside my ear. A woman whispering and sobbing at the same time. I felt cold air hit the side of my face, and I swear to God, someone whispered, "You should have stopped." I screamed and turned around. Nobody. Absolutely nothing. Then Daniel slammed on the brakes so hard we nearly crashed. Standing in the road ahead of us again was the same woman. Same white dress. Same black eyes. But now she was smiling. A huge, unnatural smile. And her feet weren't touching the ground. She was floating inches above the road. Daniel reversed the truck without even turning around. We sped backwards nearly into a ditch before finally getting enough room to turn around. The second the truck faced the opposite direction, the woman disappeared. Gone. No footsteps, no figure, nothing. We reached the nearest gas station around sunrise. The old cashier inside noticed how shaken we looked and asked where we'd come from. When we told him about the church road, his face changed immediately. Then he quietly said, "You boys saw the bell woman." Apparently, years earlier, a woman had died near that church after crashing her car late at night. People in that town believed her spirit still appeared on the road before dawn. Usually after the church bell rang at 3:07 a.m. And according to the cashier, most people who stop for her never make it home. This happened to me in rural Texas in 2021. I had just moved into a small rental house outside of Amarillo after getting a new construction job. The place was cheap, isolated, and surrounded by empty fields for miles. At night, it got unbelievably dark out there. No streetlights, no neighbors, just wind and silence. The first week was normal. I'd come home exhausted, eat something quick, and fall asleep. But around the 8th night, I woke up at exactly 2:13 a.m. to the sound of tapping. Very soft. Tap, tap, tap. At first, I thought it was a branch hitting the window because the wind outside was strong, but then it stopped. A few seconds later, tap, tap, tap. Same rhythm. I grabbed my phone and looked toward the bedroom window beside my bed. I couldn't see anything except darkness. Then lightning flashed outside for a split second, and I saw a man standing inches from the glass, just staring in. I froze. The flash was so quick, I almost convinced myself I imagined it. But then the tapping started again. Slow, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. I stayed completely still while my heart slammed against my chest. The worst part was that he wasn't trying to break in. He was just standing there, watching me. I slowly reached for my phone and called 911. While whispering to the operator, I kept my eyes on the window. Another flash of lightning lit up the yard, and this time he was smiling. Not a normal smile either. Way too wide, almost unnatural. The operator told me officers were on the way, but the nearest patrol was over 20 minutes out. Then the tapping stopped. The man slowly stepped away from the window and disappeared into the darkness beside the house. I thought maybe he left. Then I heard footsteps on the gravel outside. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Moving around the house, checking doors, checking windows. I grabbed the only weapon I had, a hammer from work, and waited in my bedroom. For the next 10 minutes, I heard him circling the house over and over, never speaking, never running, just walking, like he knew I couldn't escape. Then suddenly, silence, complete silence. About 5 minutes later, police finally arrived. They searched the property with flashlights but found nobody. No footprints either, because the ground was dry and hard. The officers told me it was probably someone trying to scare me. But before they left, one of them asked me something that made my stomach drop. He said, "Why'd you open the back window?" I told him I never opened anything. But when we checked the kitchen, the back window was wide open, and sitting on the counter beneath it was my hammer. The same hammer I'd been holding the entire time. In 2017, I was traveling through East Texas for work. I sold restaurant equipment back then, and I spent most nights staying in random roadside motels. One night, after driving for almost 6 hours, I stopped at this tiny motel outside a town called Jasper. The place looked ancient, flickering sign, empty parking lot, only 6 rooms. I should have kept driving, but I was exhausted. The old woman at the front desk handed me a key for room 11. Before I walked away, she suddenly said, "Do not look into room 12. I laughed because I thought she was joking, but she didn't laugh back. She just stared at me. I honestly got uncomfortable after that. My room smelled old and damp. The TV barely worked. and the walls were paper thin. Around midnight, I started hearing movement outside. Slow footsteps, back and forth, back and forth. At first, I assumed another guest was outside smoking or something. But after almost 20 minutes, the footsteps still hadn't stopped. So I looked through the peephole. Nobody there, but I could still hear walking right outside my door. Then I noticed something else. Room 12 was directly across from me, and light was visible under the door. I remembered what the woman said earlier, and suddenly got this horrible feeling in my stomach. I tried ignoring it, and laid back down. Then came a knock. 3 soft taps on my door. I opened it immediately. Nobody. But now room 12's door was slightly open, maybe 3 inches. I stared at it for a few seconds, and I swear I saw someone standing inside the darkness, completely still, watching me. I slammed my door shut. A few minutes later, I heard whispering outside. Not normal talking. Whispering, like multiple voices at once. I couldn't understand any words. Then my bathroom light suddenly turned on by itself. I know how stupid that sounds, but I never touched the switch. At this point, I grabbed my keys and decided I was leaving. I opened the door fast and froze. Room 12's door was now fully open. Inside was complete darkness. But there was a woman standing in the doorway. Tall, thin, long black hair covering her face. She looked soaking wet. I couldn't move. She slowly tilted her head sideways and pointed toward me. Then, in this raspy voice, she whispered, "You looked." I ran. I didn't even go back for my charger or clothes. I jumped into my truck and sped out of there. As I passed the front office, the old woman was standing outside watching me leave, like she already knew. The next morning, I searched online for that motel. Couldn't find it anywhere. No website, no photos, nothing. Almost like the place never existed. Texas has always been known for its endless highways, empty deserts, and small forgotten towns. But some people believe there's something else hiding out there in the dark. Something unexplained, something waiting. And maybe some stories are better left buried deep in Texas forever.